Welcome and thank you for tuning in. You're listening to the Beyond 50 radio program. I'm Daniel Davis. We're moving into an age now where our carbon footprint has certainly made a huge, gargantuan, gigantic mark. I can't even use the measure of largeness that I'm talking about on the world that we face today. Obviously, global warming is on us, and we're trying to struggle and find solutions of how we can actually avoid or perhaps even reverse this. Of course, we seem to be dependent on fossil fuels for many different reasons. A lot of it people say, well, that's just big business as usual, and people are more interested in profits than they are about doing the right thing. As consumers, well, we've been doing this thing, pretty much this way for a long time now, and it just seems it's going to be harder to be able to go in a different direction, perhaps even safer. Joining us here on the Beyond 50 radio program today is author of the book, The Answer: Why Only Inherently Safe Mini Nuclear Power Plants Can Save Our World. Mini power plants, nuclear. Boy, that doesn't sound too safe. We're going to take a deeper look into this and find out what it's all about. I'd like to welcome to the Beyond 50 radio program today our guest, Mr. Reese Pally. Reese, thank you for joining us here on the Beyond 50 radio program.
My pleasure.
Now, obviously, people think nuclear power plants isn't that dangerous. But, you actually make a pretty good case about nuclear power and how it's actually been handled over the decades, that this is probably one of the safest running energies we see out there. But when something unfortunate happens, maybe perhaps what really happened is more overblown, and especially when it gets hold of Hollywood, it makes for a good dramatic movie. Tell us about what's going on there.
Well, the problem of scale is what is the problem here, because the large nuclear power plants, which turn out some thousands of megawatts of electricity, and cover 800 acres and use 1,000 employees, when something goes wrong, which is not frequently, but when something goes wrong, it is an existential threat to the area around them. It affects the lives of huge numbers of people. Chernobyl and Fukushima did just that. Mm-hmm. So simply, and this is not the answer, but simply by reducing the size of those plants, you make them easier to control, and you make them safer by a serious amount of safety. But that's not the central problem. The central problem is to make a nuclear power plant that is inherently safe. Now that means that it is safe. Let me give you a little history. In 1953, Edward Teller called together a group of scientists who were working on the Manhattan Project and said this to them: I want you to sit down and design a nuclear power plant that is walk-away safe. Walk-away safe. He added that it should be a plant which can be operated by children. Walk-away safe means that no matter what you do, the power plant cannot go critical. Mm-hmm. Now that is the inherent safety is the goal of any kind of generation of power. But in nuclear, it is the keystone of everything that we could ever want in a power plant. So that the technologies which were developed in 1953 were these technologies that are inherently safe. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it does, because, when you take a look at, for instance, I was pretty surprised when you talked about, for instance, Chernobyl. One of the reactors, had trouble. It was, according to what you were saying in there, it was a minor thing that just wasn't really handled well, and that's why it kind of got out of control. But as a result, directly, it caused only about 60 deaths. And I thought, well, geez, I thought it was a lot bigger than that. And then you go on to say, for instance, that, well, they're saying that indirectly in the future that we're looking at about 4,000 deaths. But then you gave an interesting scenario after that several thousand people have been killed by lightning strikes since something like 1974. I can't remember the actual date. And that you said that in other words, what we're saying is it's about 8,000 times more likely that you're going to be struck and killed by lightning than you will die from the cause of a nuclear accident. I thought, well, those are some pretty heavy-duty statistics. How did you come up with those numbers there?
Oh, you get on the internet and you do your research.
There's the simple shortcut answer.
Absolutely. But the fact is that the threat of big nuclear power plants is really an existential threat to the local area.
Okay.
And it can spread beyond that. I mean, we have not yet had a serious nuclear accident. Now, let me tell you the basic problem in large nuclear power plants. That is the light water plants. And those are the ones that are being made and built, and of which we have 100 in use in the States. The problem is that these plants are engineered safe. That is, they have layer after layer of engineering safety devices to keep them safe. The problem with that is that unexpected events can short-circuit those devices. And the other problem is that the more layer of safety you put on, and this doesn't sound logical, but the more layer of safety that you put on, the more likely it is that the system will become so complicated that a very small event can create a very large result. So what we have to do is, the first thing we have to do is reduce the size of these plants. And I'm very happy to tell you that small nuclear power plants have been operating for 60 years in our submarine service.
Right.
And I'm even happier to tell you that small versions of these dangerous plants are being used and built all around the world today. And there are several of them which are being developed by the government in the United States. But they still all require cooling systems, active cooling systems, and they all require very, very highly trained operations. Mm-hmm. And they all have the built-in problem that if any of the safety overlays fail, they're going to go critical. So why bother with a system that is inherently unsafe when you can turn to smaller systems that are inherently safe? Mm-hmm. It seems like a no-brainer to me.
Mm-hmm. Well, here's the thing. It wasn't too long ago that energy was a discussion on a radio program that I was listening to, and it was brought up about, I believe it could have even been small nuclear power plants, but there wasn't a whole lot of time spent on it. But one of the key, I guess, arguments, if you will, was about the waste. You know, what do we do with the nuclear waste that results from nuclear power plants? I mean, this is stuff that's radioactive for many hundreds of thousands of years, from my understanding. So talk about how, okay, we've got safety probably involved here, but then again, you know, how would it be different, obviously, in the waste category than from what we're already doing? I mean, there's obvious things about fossil fuel waste to be addressed, but, you know, what are, you know, if any, the problems of the waste side of things?
Easy answer. One particular small nuclear reactor, the SMR, small modular reactor, will operate for 10 years, supply 20,000 homes with all the electricity they need, and end up with nuclear waste the size of a basketball. The point is that the small nuclear reactors were designed from the beginning to create much, much less waste and much less dangerous waste. The other thing we have to know is that several nuclear reactors, like the standing wave reactor and the traveling wave reactor, which is being financed by Bill Gates, actually use waste nuclear products as fuel.
Really?
So if we convert to these kind of user waste reduction technologies, we can, within a very few years, just get rid of all of the nuclear waste that we have. The nuclear waste thing is really a red herring. It is easily solved even in terms of what we're doing today, but we don't have the political will to solve it.
Mm-hmm.
But with the small modular reactors, which were designed originally to minimize waste and to use waste materials, it seems again to me to be a no-brainer.
Now, I know that as I was, reading through your book, The Answer, you talked about some solutions, for instance, that would move us away from fossil fuels, into nuclear power, and, over the course of 10 years. And I remember that there was one particular piece of math that talked about, for instance, coal tax at $6 a ton. Doesn't seem significant, but as soon as the word tax was put in there, I thought, okay, maybe this is one of the problems, and you address this pretty heavily in the book, is that, okay, so we get a $6 tax over every ton of coal. Now you think about all the coal that we're, pulling out of the earth each year, that over the course of 10 years, this would relate into several $1 billion that could be transferred, or trillion. Well, I figured, from what I remember reading, it was a combination of the different things, but okay, just for the sake of math. But the fact that you use the word tax, I thought, okay, tax, that involves the government. Let's take a look at, what's really going on there, the kickbacks that they get from the way that we're doing things now. There really seems to be trouble on the horizon for moving from point A to point B. Tell us about the bureaucracy, apparently, of this. And this goes even to the people that are actually out there waving the flag in the name of, green living and environmental protection. It's a pretty big entanglement going on here.
Well, I can't apologize for the fact that the American public was never educated properly about either economics or nuclear power. You can't run an efficient government without taxation.
Right.
And if you look at the German model, for example, they have the highest taxes in a year and no significant unemployment. That should tell you a story. The present position, and I'm not sure you want me to get political. The present position of the Republican Party on the absolutely no tax, especially on high-income people, just doesn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
Of course you need government intervention when it comes to enormous projects like converting from fossil fuels to nuclear energy. And of course you're going to need tax money. But
Mm-hmm.
it's that tax money that makes our capitalist system work.
Mm-hmm.
It is not anti-capitalist. It is pro-capitalist. If you let the capitalist system work without taxation and controls, we're going to end up the way Germany ended up. The old Germany.
The old Germany.
Not the new Germany.
Now,
the one we fought in the Second World War. Incidentally, your program is designed for over 50s?
It's designed really for everybody, but sure.
Let me just say that my book, The Answer, was started when I turned 88 and was finished when I turned 90.
Congratulations.
So, no excuses for being too old to get things done.
I agree with you very much. Congratulations on that. Now, let's talk about these mini nuclear power plants. How big are we talking, and where do we actually place these things to get them started?
Okay, let's take the smallest of them. It is 5 feet wide by 8 foot high. That's the whole thing.
It's about the size of about, 3 hot water heaters, basically.
Something like that.
Yeah.
5 foot wide, 8 foot tall. And you take this unit, it's built in a factory, which is built very cheaply. You build it on an assembly line, which means you can make thousands of them, the way we built B-17 bombers in the Second World War. Thousands. 300,000 at the end of the war, for the last year of the war. And you ship them on a semi. You dig a big hole, 300 feet deep. You drop it down in it. You cap it with concrete. There's no containment needed. There's no water no cooling water needed, and there are no controls needed. And that is absolutely inherently safe. And if some unbelievably improbable event happens, it's 300 feet in the ground.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking about that, and that's a unit that puts out about 75 megawatts thermal, which is about 25 megawatts of electricity. You have I'm sure you have a large nuclear reactor in your area. Do you know which one it is?
Well, we used to have Trojan, but that's been shut down now for quite a few years.
So where do you get your energy?
Well, that's the Bonneville Dam. So, yeah, that's where a significant amount of energy on the West Coast comes from.
Let me talk about hydroelectric energy for a moment.
Sure.
It is considered the greenest of all energy, correct?
Well, I don't know. If you've seen a dam and you understand how they work, I don't consider it a green energy, but we'll go with it if we could.
Well, the problem is that it is not burning any fossil fuels.
Mm-hmm.
But the lakes that build up behind the dams over the years build up enormous quantities of CO2, carbon dioxide.
Right.
And this stays in solution under pressure at the bottom of the lake. When this water is drawn out to make power for the turbines, that water is run through the turbine blades, which open up lessen the pressure, and in enormous quantities of CO2 escape.
Mm-hmm.
There's one dam that has been certified as creating more CO2 than a coal-fired plant. But that's a whole separate part of my book. That has to do with identifying the sources, all of the sources of CO2 production. And my conclusion in the book is that every form of energy that you can name, including solar and wind, geothermal, and all the rest, have an element in them of CO2 production. The only one that doesn't is nuclear.
Huh.
The book covers a wide range of arguments, and it is written really for the ordinary guy in the street. And it will wrap up it encapsulates the whole history and the whole argument for nuclear power and against fossil fuel in 199 pages.
Mm-hmm.
You can read it in a weekend.
Yeah, what I found funny, it's it actually had me thinking about the movie Armageddon as I was reading, about some of the solutions that we were trying to come up with that would actually change our carbon footprint when it comes to fuels. And I was thinking of the scene in Armageddon where everybody was trying to think of a solution toward this hurtling, asteroid toward Earth, and one guy was laying out, for instance, this mylar sail. We'll attach this, to the asteroid and let the, solar winds push it out of the way, like a sailboat. And you're looking at least they were trying, to come up with solutions, but there were a couple of them in here that I was thinking, people actually thought this might be a solution, and two of them, one of them I'd never heard of, but the first one was algae. This is something apparently we've been working at for a lot of years, but viably it just doesn't work because of the scale that's necessary. And the second thing was biochar. That was something I'd never heard of before. Kind of describe those two sources of energy, what the intention behind these things were to change what we're doing.
Well, biochar is just an absolute dream. It's a fantasy. The idea is to create is to burn coal, right? And you make charcoal, or you burn waste biomaterial, and you get charcoal. But it's all a burning process, and that kind of biochar is a significant enrichment to the earth in terms of agricultural needs. But it is not even worth talking about. It is just one of these fantasy solutions that comes up every once in a while. No, the final answer to our need for energy, which is doubling in a very few years, has got to be nuclear. It can't be anything else. We're never going to run out of fossil fuels. We have enough coal to burn for the next 500 or 600 or 700 years, by which time we'd fry the earth.
Right.
And we're continually finding new sources of oil, and you know what's happening in Pennsylvania with the fracking of new gas sources, natural gas sources. So it's the availability and the cheapness of fossil fuels which makes them so attractive. But you can't afford to use them anymore. The temperature of the Earth is rising. CO2 has increased from 280 parts per million in 1980 to 395 parts per million in less than 200 years.
Wow.
Prior to that, for millions of years, the CO2 level in the atmosphere didn't vary at all. So it was really the Industrial Revolution, the burning of coal and oil and the rest of them, that put us in the soup where we are now. The only way out that you can do it in time, see, the large nuclear reactors cost $15 billion to build and take 15 years to develop. We can never build them fast enough to get our hands on the increasing needs for energy. But the small modular reactors, you can build them in a factory, you can turn them out by their thousands. They're utterly simple in terms of construction. And that, because we can make so many of them, we can, within a reasonable number of years, probably well before the end of the century, convert away from fossil fuels entirely.
It's pretty fascinating. I mean, it sounds so encouraging, and you kind of wonder, well, if this is true, what's stalling all of this besides the need for, I would guess, the profits and kickbacks that go from continuing on the path that we're on?
Well, it's really an easy answer. You toss me all easy questions. The problem is that the government is 100% aware. Chu, the Secretary of Energy, knows all about small modular reactors. Industry knows all about small modular reactors. They're putting their first little financial toe into it. And the scientists know all about small modular reactors. So what is holding them back? Well, for 50 years, it was the need for plutonium for warheads when we went into Cold War with Russia. And that set the pattern for using breeder reactors, the large reactors, because they make more plutonium than they use. The other restraint, the other reason why it's not being taken up, is, as you clearly said, is invested capital in oil, coal, gas. There are trillions of dollars of invested capital, and these people don't want to see are not happy about supporting anything other than the product that they have. And then there is the whole problem of the regulatory agencies. And the regulatory agency has not approved a new form of nuclear energy in 50 years. They haven't even yet begun to train scientists to judge the validity of small modular reactor designs. So that when you have a government that's politically paralyzed, you have industry that is intent on preserving present profits, and you have scientists who have no whack in with the public. You have all of these dams against the small modular reactors, but they will be broken through.
So how soon do we see the possibility of this getting to a level that you're talking about here happening?
Well, that's a big problem. Depends on political will. It depends on educating the American public. Those are large and difficult problems.
Mm-hmm.
A small nuclear reactor could be built. The first one could be built in 16 months and be in operation in a year and a half from now.
Wow.
When you get into factory production, you could be turning out thousands of small nuclear reactors within a 10 to 15 or 20-year period. So that the conversion to small is a time saver and a money saver.
That's fascinating very much. Reese, if you could, give our listeners your website and maybe a resource or two they can look into this further.
Okay. First, read the book. The book is called The Answer. It's available on Amazon.
Which is very interesting, by the way.
Yeah. The book is interesting. Thank you very much.
No, it really is. It's very enjoyable read, actually.
As far as looking further into the subject is concerned, The Answer, my book has a anthology of about 20 books, where I drew a lot of my information from. The other thing you can do is go today, onto the web and go to something called Gizmag, Gizmag, and there is a long, insightful, and accurate article about small modular reactors that covers a lot of the material we're talking today. And let me repeat, Gizmag, Gizmag, and you will be able to, in a 10-minute read, find so many of the answers. My website is reespally.com, www.reespally.com, and you'll find on there a lot of information, a lot of it about nuclear, a lot about concrete, which I've written about, a lot about my sailing career, because when I turned 60, I bought a sailboat and sailed around the world. And there's a lot of interesting stuff there that doesn't have to do with nuclear. But the important stuff is the nuclear. The only answer to the fossil fuel problem, the only answer to rising CO2 level is to find a way to quickly and cheaply get rid of fossil fuel burning.
The book is The Answer, Why Only Inherently Safe Mini Nuclear Power Plants Can Save Our World. Our guest today, Reese Paley. Reese, thank you for joining us here on the Beyond 50 radio program.
It's been great, and I appreciate very much the care with which you read the book.
Thank you.
That's not true of all people who interview me.
Well, thank you very much, Reese.
Take care, and good luck to all of your people.
You too. Thank you very much.
Bye.
We also want to thank you, the listeners out there. It's just like Reese says and many of our wonderful guests that we've had on the program. Get out there and find out more about this for yourselves and find out the actions that you can take. You know, the most important thing is to be armed with information, but even more important, do something once you have it. One of the websites he gave was Gizmag, Gizmag, to find out more about these mini nuclear power plants that he's suggesting. Always possibilities and solutions on the horizon. It's just a matter of taking action. We want to thank you for tuning in. You're listening to the Beyond 50 radio program. Be sure to visit us at our website at beyond50radio.com, the number 50. There's a free weekly e-newsletter you can sign up for, plus a blog to visit where we archive our shows and also have wonderful hot links for you to use and share with others. And I don't mean the hot links that you eat. I'm Daniel Davis. Again, thank you for tuning in. And remember, live your day past